gorilla, nature. Bro, let's go skate. Dude, E equals MC squared. Nerd for life.
All right. Hello, how's it going, you guys? My name is Pastor Darius, and today I want to answer 4 questions about Pastor Darius. This is 4 questions about Pastor Darius. So, question number 1: what is my big life goal? To be straightforward, my big life goal is to eliminate poverty from the face of the earth. The fact is that I don't believe that poverty benefits anybody, to be straightforward. I feel that, a lot of rich people use their money to oppress people who don't have as much education and people who were just born in families who did not have the same opportunities as those rich people. The fact is like, if we look at the history of the world, the European people, and all the European people went and they traveled across the world, and they used their resources, they used the knowledge that they had to go and colonize the entire planet. And so now what has been happened is that you have people who are running governments in these poor countries, and the people who are running the governments in the poor countries are they are trading the resources of their country for the money and the wealth and the riches. These are the leaders of a lot of the world, a lot of the poor countries. They trade the resources in their country for, financial stability, or greater finances for their own families. But the fact is that it does not benefit the world for there to be children who are living in impoverished situations. And, I went to school. I was very fortunate, that I was blessed to be one of the people who was born in, one of the wealthier families. But the fact is that my parents, they both lived in poverty at some point in their life. My mom was homeless, and my dad, he came from Jamaica. That's a poor country. It's a poorer country. I would say it's second world, but the fact is that, they grew up with nothing, and, they worked really hard. They got education. And I think this is part of the reason why, for me, it's such a big thing that, as a pastor, and then as, for our nonprofit, that we are working to support the children in poor countries to get for their pursuit of education. I don't know. I just believe that if people have a desire to have a better life, that, just because they were born in a certain family, or they were born in a certain country, doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to pursue a better quality of life. So yeah, that's my big life goal, is to eliminate poverty from the face of the planet. I want to travel to every country, and then we would like to, my organization, we want to create infrastructure in the places where there is no infrastructure. We want to go to villages, and we want to go to any place on this planet where people aren't receiving medical, we want to build hospitals, we want to build schools, and, we want to open businesses internationally. And we want to help other people to also open businesses and pursue, the quality of life that they want. So yeah, that is my big life goal. All right, let's go to question number 2. What was my greatest challenge in life? That's an interesting one. I would probably say that my greatest challenge in life was when I was incarcerated, without a doubt. It was when I went to jail, man. I remember I was like 21. When I was 21, I was like I was stupid. You know, like straight up, man, I was stupid, man. I mean, I hung around because, like, I don't know, man, I had a lot of bad influences. One of my cousins, my younger cousin, he came here when I think he came here when he was 16. I think I was like 17 or 18 at the time. And, pretty much like he opened my eyes to a life that I never had access to before meeting him. I think he might have been like 15 or something. I don't remember how it was, but at the time, I remember when I was like, I think I'm like only maybe a year or 2 years older than he is. But the fact is, he came here and his mindset was completely different from that of mine. I grew up in the church, so I remember like just growing up, like just meeting a lot of people who I didn't have access to before, and I thought it was cool to be like the hood kids, right? Like I remember growing up in the Bay Area, the kids from, I'm from San Jose, but the kids over in Oakland were seen as like the popular, like, their whole style, they had swag, their music was being broadcast everywhere. And I think that I don't know, man, I was just like, the appeal of it all kind of like pushed me to like want to be like them. So I remember I had like a gold grill, and I used to have like braids, and I used to have dreadlocks too, just like I do now. But I even used to tell people I was from Louisiana, like from the South, because the people from the South were cool too. Like, all the music, especially for being a young African American kid, but yeah, I remember like when I was 21, I was hanging around one guy, and me and this guy, this is around the time when I was like smoking and drinking, and I was smoking weed, of course, and drinking alcohol. And I remember vividly exactly how it all happened. Me and this guy, we were out drinking, and then we were downtown San Jose, and we decided to go to one of the fraternities over there. And while we were at, we were bouncing around, it was like 2-3 in the morning, like clearly we had nothing to do. We were just literally walking around and looking for things to get into. And the fact is like, if you're out at nighttime, this is why I'm always trying to advocate for people to not drink or not smoke, or even going out, right? Like when you're out and you don't really have a purpose, it seems like people will find trouble. A lot of young people get in trouble when they're in their 20s, when they're young, 21, 22, 23, because they start drinking, and, that leads to hanging around with other people. It leads to, doing other types of drugs and stuff. But for my situation, I ended up I went out, I remember before I had never like tried ecstasy or any type of pill. And then that night, I was with my buddy, I was drinking, I was smoking, we were smoking weed, and then, I don't know, we had met somebody, and then we got access to like some pills or something like that. They're like Blue Dolphins, or I don't remember exactly what it was, but we got access to it, and it literally changed my life. That night, that one night, literally changed the course of my life. I mean, we went into a frat house, ended up taking like some kid's PlayStation, and ran out of the house. I was like laughing and running the whole time. I don't even remember all the full details. I remember doing what I did, but I was so high off of the ecstasy or the pills that we had taken, whatever they were, Thizzles or whatever it was. That stuff was in during that time too. But yeah, man, I ended up going to jail for like 6 months behind that. I went 3 months 1 year, and then, my family bailed me out, And then I ended up having to fight the case for like an entire year. And then initially I ended up getting out, or I ended up, I pled guilty, and I took the deal that was offered to me. My parents, they ended up paying like, I don't know, maybe like 10 or I don't know, maybe like 10 or 15. I don't know, maybe 15, maybe, I don't know how much they paid. They paid a lot of money to the lawyer. But, I'm so grateful that I was just blessed to have the family that I have, that, even in the point of my weakness, my family was there to support me. But I remember like when I was in jail and I was incarcerated, like I remember there's this one point where I was like, I was in like, like the serious lockdown. This is before my, like they had to go through a process of discovery and all that. And then, but at first they had me incarcerated with people who were doing like long prison sentences, looking at 10, 15, 20 years, because the initial offer that they offered me was 5 years and with 2 felonies and a strike. That was like, I'm sorry, no, it was 2 years prison time with 2 felonies and then a strike. I mean, it was crazy, man. And then, they did this discovery, went through the whole process. And then, pretty much the kids who were involved in the same situation, or, the kids who were involved in that situation, they came forth and they said they didn't want to press charges. And then the state decided to lower the charges, the district attorney. It was a full ordeal, man. Straight up, it was the craziest time of my life, man. Like, I remember when I was incarcerated, I was like sleeping in my bunk, and then there's this guy who he like used to sleep on top, and he was like always talking to himself, and he was like, yeah, man, like when I'm rapping, he told me, he was like, sometimes when I'm rapping, like, he's like, he told me, he opened up, he's like, yeah, I talk to demons. And he said that he raps to demons, and this guy was sleeping on top of me, or sleeping on top of my, on top of the bunk on top of mine. And he's talking about he talks to demons, so people don't think he's crazy. He said he raps, and so that's how he's able to communicate, to the demons without like, people thinking that he's crazy. Crazy situation, man. That was crazy. Like, hey, man, don't ever go to jail, man. For all the people out there watching this, man, straight up, bro. Like, it was a lesson learned, man. Like, after that, I never went back. That was straight up. Oh, man, crazy. So, yeah, let's go ahead and go to, yeah, that was crazy. Real talk. All right, so question number 3. Who is my greatest inspiration? Who is my greatest inspiration? I would probably say, I would like to say it's Jesus, of course, but for the sake of, I'm going to go with a different individual. I would probably say my greatest inspiration would probably be Dr. Martin Luther King. And the reason why I say that is because Dr. King, one of his great inspirations was Mahatma Gandhi. I learned from reading that, that was like one of his great inspirations. But, I would probably say like, yeah, definitely Dr. King. Cause Dr. King, he went through so much adversity, and he was fighting a losing battle, right? Like, him and all the other revolutionary people during that time, Rosa Parks, and there's a lot of different people, Malcolm X. I mean, there's just a plethora of individuals who all come together, fighting for the equality of people of color, right? African American people. The mistreatment for the African American people during that time was just insane, and it was internationally known, how people were being mistreated during the Jim Crow era. I mean, it was just, it's crazy, I mean, they had organizations. I believe during that time is when the NAACP was created. I remember when I was younger, I had actually joined the NAACP. And, and yeah, I think I was like the president. I was I remember I was the president for like, I don't know, maybe like a couple weeks, but it was when I was young. I was like, oh man, how old was I at that time? Oh, it was like I think it was like maybe 17 or 18 or something like that. Yeah, no, I might have been a little bit older. I don't remember exactly the age that I was. I think it was maybe, I think it was like maybe like 18 or 19. But yeah, man, like that was a crazy time during Martin Luther King. And right now there's a lot of injustice around the country, even for young African American men in the United States, right? Like, I mean, there's just been so many situations where the police have murdered young African American men in the streets in cold blood. And, it just seems like I feel oppressed living in the United States as an African American man. I feel like we're being oppressed, because like these situations are happening, but I don't I've seen like from the police officers who are doing this, they're not really getting life sentences. I think some of the police officers have gotten maybe a couple of years prison time, but to murder somebody in cold blood and then to get a couple of years in prison, it's like clearly the country, the government is saying that this type of behavior is acceptable or it's palatable here in the United States. Because if they were to do, and I remember, oh my gosh, man, there was this one story about, there was a Caucasian kid who walked into a church and he shot it was a black church, and he shot 9 black people. And, they took him in, and they put like body armor on him and everything. I mean, that was probably the craziest thing I ever heard in my life, because I remember there's a similar situation. Similar situation that I learned about, it was actually with one of my buddies. His name is Sharif. His name is Sharif Alman. But his dad actually, some years ago, his dad went and he shot 3 people at the quarry here in it was somewhere, it was in the Bay Area. I think it was in Cupertino. But when it was time for him to surrender, I believe he surrendered, but the police shot him immediately. They didn't even give him an opportunity to surrender. It's crazy that situations like that happen. But yeah, man, that's, like I say, Martin Luther King is definitely probably one of my greatest inspirations. Is just fighting for inequality. And I feel like that's what I'm doing with our nonprofit organization, Gorilla Nature Inc. I believe that I just want to help as many young kids that I can out there who are struggling and just not given opportunity to have a better quality of life. Kids, they were just born in poor countries. And I think that because I was gifted with, the opportunity to have a good life, and even though my parents came from poverty, right? I have an understanding. They explained to me the things that they've been through. My mom has talked to me about it and educated me about the stuff she went through, and the same thing with my dad. So yeah, man, I just want to make a difference in the world that I live in. Last question. Why do I work so hard? I would probably say I work tirelessly. Right now I'm doing about 10 to 12 hours a day driving Uber, and I do that 7 days a week. And then when I get off Uber, I come to the office and I try to do about 3 to 4 more hours of work. So typically about 14 hours, 7 days a week. Yeah, I guess the reason why I work so hard is because of my mom, I would probably say, because my mom is my great, man, my mom's like my hero. She grew up homeless. She was abandoned when she was a kid at 16, and she made it all the way to the Bay Area. And when she made it out here, she lived in the hood. She lived in a crack house, and when she was 16, and she went through so much. But somehow she found a way to like make it out of that, all that madness. She never did the drugs. My mom's extra Christian, so she was able to escape that situation. And she went to college, and then after college, at some point she met my dad, and then my dad, he also went to college. And literally, like, them getting an education changed not just the course of their life, but the course of all of our lives. Me and my siblings, my nephews and nieces, they're all scholars. All of my brothers and sisters, we've all been to college. And which is crazy, because that, like, there's a lot of African American kids who, they don't even, like, they only care about sports. And the only reason why they would go to college is for sports. Like me, I went to college because I wanted to do business. At first, when I was younger, I wanted to play sports, but as I got older, I realized, what, this is not what I want to do with my life. I don't want to be chasing a football. But yeah, my mom, man, she's like chauffeured Muhammad Ali. She's chauffeured Gladys Knight. She's met Bill Gates. My mom is like an incredible individual. She used to own her own chauffeur business, and then after that, she went into real estate. She made it really successful in real estate, and they bought the house that my parents have now. And they've just been incredible role models for us. My parents have really like set the standard so high, to the point where my sister, she's a doctor. She went to Berkeley. She went to Johns Hopkins, got her master's and doctorate in nursing over there at Johns Hopkins. And then after that, she went into the military. My sister, she's an American hero. Yeah, man, I have a lot of incredible people around me. All my brothers, they went to college. The brother that's directly older than me, he owns his own barber shop. And my other brother, he's into real estate, and he's very successful over in the Sacramento area. My younger brother, he owns a house. I mean, man, my family, they're superstars, and I guess I'm just trying to keep up. Real talk, man. My dad, he's an engineer, and he works for one of the top companies, Seagate. Like, man, my family's incredible. They set the bar so high that I just want to make a difference. Really, I think I'm competing with my sister, because she went to the military, went to the top schools of the. Right now, I'm planning on going to, at some point, I want to go to Stanford for one of my doctorates, and after that, I want to go to Oxford. So I think that if I become a world-renowned humanitarian and philanthropist, that I think then maybe, my family will be like, all right, this kid he's a good guy. But yeah, I want to make my mom proud of me. I think that's like my big thing. She's the reason why I even know about God. She instilled Christianity in me. She raised me Christian my whole life. And she's been calling me her preacher for so long. I resisted for so long. And then, as I got older, I remember when I was turned 30, I started getting more serious about building a relationship with God, and I stopped drinking, stopped smoking, and I went vegetarian for about 4 years. But long story short, I think that I'm doing all of this so that I can, show my mom and my ancestors, the ones that came before me who worked hard to give me this opportunity to have the quality of life I have, that I'm grateful. I just want to show that I'm grateful. Yeah. All right, there it is. Perfect.